Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Base Lightning Components. I am the product manager for Base Lightning Components. My name is Srinivas Araru. I'm very excited to talk about what we have done in this release. The journey started a couple of years ago. When we introduced Lightning Experience, we also wanted to let our customers enhance and customize their features, their experience. So first what we did was we introduced UI components. Before that, let me just do some housekeeping here. We are a publicly traded company. I'm going to share some forward-looking statements. If you're going to make any buying decisions, please make it based on what's available today. Thank you. So yes, so when we started the Lightning Experience, when we started a couple of years ago, we first gave you UI components. UI components were bare bones components, no styling, no CSS, none of that. It worked very well initially, but then the feedback that we got from our customers is it's a lot of work. So what we did next was we standardized all the designs, and SLDS was introduced. The guys who are behind here, the CAM design systems, which was awesome because the designs were standard, the markup, CSS, everything was available. But then putting them into UI components was still a lot of work. So the feedback we got was, you need to make it a lot more easy. So that's how we came to Base Lightning Components. So no HTML, no CSS. We want to let you build your business logic. That's it, to make it as easy as possible. Let me start with some introductions. My name is Srinivas Araru, like I said before. My co-presenter is Greg Ruiz. He is the demo god, prankster-in-chief in the team. Well, he's not doing any of that. He is the dev evangelist for this product. You're going to hear a lot from him in the next few months, either in terms of demos or blog posts, or he's going to be out there talking to a lot of you people. So when we started this, we put some goals and philosophies in place. The first and foremost was it should be easy to adopt. So what we did was we patterned it after HTML so that if you know HTML, it will be easy for you to learn. So a lot of the attributes and specs that you would see would be very similar to HTML. The next thing that we did was we wanted to be componentized. What that means is each component is self-contained, but they can be composed to build experience components. Experience components are something I'm going to use quite often. Experience components are components that you want to build which relate to a feature in your org. The components that we are coming out is base components. So base components make up your experience components. So we want you to use our base components to build your experience components. The next principle was we wanted minimal CSS. So CSS, HTML is baked in, so it comes with the SLDS styles. But the most important thing is as SLDS is evolving, our components also evolve with it. So that's great for you guys. The last and the most important is these components are accessible by design. So when you start using these components, you don't have to do a lot. That's one of our most important goals. The philosophy with which we started is we wanted to facilitate reusability or all other principles. So the idea of componentizing each of these components, having a very strict API, and also still allowing composition was around facilitating reusability. To help that, we started with a very restrictive shape, and then on request, we want to relax it. So initially, we're going to talk about these components would do very specific things, but based on requests, we would expand it. We also wanted to optimize for best practices and make it more challenging for you guys to do any bad practices. So it's easier for us to maintain the components. The contract that the components have would be, it'll more adhere to those contracts. But that's one of our driving philosophies. And the last is we want to develop components for 80% of the use cases. So what that means is the design, the attributes, all of that, we want to design these components for what most people would use. But if you have a case where it's in the last 20%, we would have to look at other options. And some of the other options is what Greg is going to show later. But we're talking about snowflakes where these components, if they were not designed for that, they might not support those snowflakes. But that was also one of our philosophies. The next thing that we did was we sort of went back to the drawing board and we started talking to our customers. So the customer feedback that we got was a lot of our customers wanted experience components. So they wanted like Object Home, they wanted Kanban. But they also wanted base components. But what we realized was if we start releasing or if we start exposing the experience components that we have, we're not going to empower you to build your experience components. The other reason for that thought is a lot of the experience components that you guys wanted, was so varied that trying to build the Swiss Army of experience components, we're not going to succeed going down that road. So first thing that we realized is we need first the base components to be released, and then we can think about releasing experience components. Then we looked at our apps and figured out what is the most used components. And then we looked at the analytics of the Lightning design system sites to see what are the components that most people are looking for. So with this, we came a graph with the most used and the most requested components. This is the release train that we're going to do for this product over the next 2 to 3 releases. So what we did is we took the most needed components from this batch, and that is basically the form components, the button component, and the input component. As you can see here, the styling is completely baked in. It's very simple. It also supports a lot of the HTML types in case of input. So it supports type equals number, type equals radio, type equals select. So very similar to HTML. So like I said before, it should be pretty easy to start with. If you look at the code, it's actually also very simple. All you have to do is Lightning button or Lightning input with type. Again, very similar pattern to HTML. The markup is really simple. There is no CSS that you are having to apply. In case you want to override CSS, we're going to be providing you a mechanism where you can say class equals whatever the CSS class is. So in addition to these 3 components, we also added the family of components. So for example, button would be button, button group, button icon, button menu. In addition to input components, also output components like formatted number, formatted datetime, and also spinner and text area. What we figured out is if you're going to tell you guys you should be composing components, we should also build our components with the same model. I've got an example here where you're taking a simple button, which by itself works really well. But when you add them up, combine them, and add a button group around it, it becomes a button group. So refresh, edit, save by itself work well, but together also work well. If you add a button menu with menu items, it becomes a button group with an overflow menu item. So this is a classic case of how composition works. And since we are using it and this works, this is the same thing. This is the same model with which you should build your experience components. In addition to these base set of components, we also came up with container and layout components. So that was tab set, tab. A card is a container component. Here's an example of a container component. The only difference between a narrow container component and a larger container component is the variant. This is something which you're going to see as a standard pattern as we go in all the components that we are going to come out with. So if you have a component and you just want to change the look and feel of it, the CSS part of it, then all you need to do is change the variant. Layout and layout item is an interesting component because it helps you put all the base components in a page, but it also supports responsiveness. So if you change the size of the page, it can go from a 2-column to a single-column layout. A very good example of this is there's a booth down there at the very start. It's called the base Lightning components. One of the examples there actually does do that. So what do you need to know? At the end of it, what you guys need to know is it's a very simple markup. If you know HTML, you should be able to adopt these. If you want to change the look and feel, all you have to do is change the variant. All of this is documented, so you should be able to go through documentation and take a look at it. Greg later is going to show how you can build components, and he's going to walk you through some of the documentation. The structure that we are going to follow going forward for all the components that we are delivering is going to be similar. So it should be very simple to adopt. Again, one of our basic goals when we started this project. What about the future? If they are in the Lightning design systems, which is basically a CSS framework, which we have come out with to help for consistent user experience across different apps, then they will be in base Lightning components. So the base Lightning components would be lagging behind the Salesforce Lightning design systems, but we will be supporting, the plan is to support most of the components that you see in the SLDS system. Again, the 80-20 rule, we want to do 80%. There's going to be cases where you're going to have a snowflake, and that's something which we would not be able to support. But we're going to show an example of what we mean by that, or how you can build your component based on an existing SLDS markup. Going forward, for the next release, we're thinking of adding more depth to single record components. So input search, select, pick list, rich text, tile, pill, and later adding some experience in data-bound components, which would be input field, output field, very similar to Visualforce today, list, or lookup. You're going to ask, what about today? Today, what you're going to do is you will have to, in the meantime, if there is an experience component you're trying to build, you would have to take what is the markup in the design systems, and you can replace them with the existing base components. I'm going to give this over to Greg now.
I'm going to show that.
Let me see that.
Now you've already told them what I'm going to show. They're not going to be excited. Are you guys still excited?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. All right, let me get out of this and back over here. Okay, I'm going to start with a real simple example. Now, as Srini told you, the base components, first of all, the first thing you have to know, how many of you have even knew that they were there? Okay, a few hands, right. A few hands. We've done a really good job at hiding them and not talking about them yet, all right?
We wanted the surprise element.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But I want to show you where you can find it. First of all, if you are a developer building Lightning components today, then you should be familiar with the Lightning Developer Guide. And for some reason, my monitor, I'm going to change the resolution on my monitor because it is really, really small. Let's hope that we can do that without causing too many problems. Let's see. There we go. Much nicer. Okay. All right. So if you're a Lightning component developer, then you know all about the Developer's Guide, or at least I hope you know about the Developer's Guide. And you can find all of these Lightning components, first of all, by simply going down into the reference section and then scrolling down here through the component reference, where at some point right about here, you're going to start running into all of those Lightning components that Srini just laid out for you. Now, the thing to note here, as Srini was talking about, is there's a bunch of these, and each one of them has specific properties that we're going to want to talk about. Let's take a very simple example. You talked about inputs to start, so we'll go down here to the Lightning input. Now, I just noticed that it says Lightning input beta. Why does it say beta there, Srini?
The beta is we're still working on some of the attributes.
Ah, okay.
From our team's perspective, it's very similar to GA. We're still going to support it. But there's some attributes which it's a work in progress. We're working on getting it to GA in this release.
All right. Well, let's say we wanted to use an input. Maybe we're just going to do like a name or something like that, right? You'll notice that we have some examples here of various types. Here's an input with quantity. I'm just going to take that Actually, I'm just going to take the whole thing and copy that code. Now, before I do leave there, notice there is a lot of stuff to know about each one of these components. So a lot of things about the attributes and things that we want to make sure that as a developer you go through and look at all of this and understand what your options are, especially on something like, who knew a simple input could have so many things to know about
I've just sold them that it's really simple.
It is really simple.
Are you trying to say that it is, even though it's simple, it's got a rich feature set?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's exactly. You'd think we set that joke up, but we didn't. Okay. It is really a very, very rich thing that we can create. So once I've copied my code, let's go back over into one of my orgs here, and I'm just going to pull up my developer console. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a brand new component. So I'll just say, let's create a brand new Lightning component, and I'll just call this silly demo. And I'm going to make this available for Lightning App Builder. And once I have that, now it's just a matter of me simply copying and pasting in those items. Now, that's an input. How about every input? You know what every input needs?
Yeah.
A button.
A button.
Right, exactly. So every input needs a button, so we'll go back over, we'll grab a button as well.
You should name that my own silly in
Oh, well, I should actually.
Next time.
All right, I'm just going to open this thing up so I can just grab that one line. Here we go. I'm going to copy that and then back over into my developer console where we'll just paste that one in as well. I'll save this and we'll go back to our page where I'm going to go into edit my page. Now, when I edit my page, it's going to go into Lightning App Builder. And we're going to see that my component's available for me over here. What did I call it? I called it Silly Demo. So there we go. Here we have a Silly Demo. I'm just going to drag and drop that somewhere onto the page. And you can see that I have my input. I'll save this, head back over here into the actual page. And I have my input field, and I have my button. Now, you'll notice that this is that blue button. That blue button simply because I grabbed the one that had a variant called brand. Right? What happens if I take that brand variant off?
Should. It'll take the...
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Hey,
because,
Greg,
yes.
I also want you to say required equals true on the input.
Really? Wait, what did I just say? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to required equals true on the input field? Okay. Why?
I just want to see. I saw that when you were...
Is there something magical that's going to happen?
There's something magical that might happen.
So we're going to do that. For Srini, we'll go back over here. We will reload our page one more time. Now we'll notice we've got a couple of changes. First of all, that button changed its look because, again, what we're trying to do is to abstract, if you will, away all the styling and stuff that you've had to figure out on your own before by simply providing those simple variants. Now, I bet you want me to
Oh, wait.
Oh, wow, look at that.
I thought it just showed the red dot.
The really cool thing is I don't even have to think about validation now because it's all built into these form fields. Is that cool? You don't sound impressed. All right, let me see if I can do something better, all right, more impressive. All right, what about if I wanted, now you mentioned the future, okay? And yeah, these base Lightning components are really, really good out of the box. The, 19 or so that we've given them?
19.
Something like that. But really, as Srini mentioned, they really boil down to things like inputs and buttons and button groups and all of those kind of things. We know that the Salesforce platform has a richness with other components that the SLDS team has been working hard to provide us. And as Srini mentioned, not all of those SLDS things have been turned into an actual base component. So what do? No big deal. Let's try it ourselves. We're going to go back over here into our developer console where I'm going to build yet another Lightning component. This Lightning component is going to be a different kind. This is going to be called I'll call this Silly so I can find it. Silly process. All right, once again, make it available here.
So wait, we don't have a Lightning process component currently.
Right.
Okay.
But I just
happen
to know a place where I can get one.
All right.
So if I head over into the Lightning Design System, now the Lightning Design System, as we can see, has a lot of very rich components, one of which is that process component that we know, for example, from opportunities and things.
Yes.
So if I wanted to use this...
You've been talking about this for a week, by the
I know.
way, and you've never shown it to me.
All right, well, here we go. I'm just going to start right up here at the top. I'm going to scroll all the way down here to the bottom. This is a really big component, as you can see. And I'm just going to copy that text. Now, I'm going to head back over into my developer console. I'm going to do a quick paste. Now,
This is fine.
right,
You should
this...
be able to save it and...
well, no, you see, because first of all, there's a couple of problems. Number one, I don't necessarily want all of these steps here. So I'm going to take a few of them out, because otherwise... you'd get bored watching me edit code here. So I'm just going to take a few of these out just like that.
But it looks like a process. Why are you doing that?
Well, the reason I'm doing that is because you've done a really great job of giving me some of the pieces that I need, but not all of them. So, for example, you'll notice that here in every one of my steps, I've got an SVG. And that SVG, of course, that's fine, except for the fact that I happen to see something in your documentation. I think I saw lightning icon. Right. So I want to use a lightning icon. So I'm going to move back over here. I'm going to go find what my markup is. So again, I'll scroll down here. I find my lightning icon. I'm going to open that up one more time so I can just grab that one little line here. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to head back over here. And before I paste in that new button or that new icon component, what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that in the markup coming out of the Salesforce Lightning Design System, I can see right now that this is a utility icon, and it is the check mark. And it's actually sized to be extra small. So I want to know these things so that now as I paste this in, boom, paste it in, I'm going to change my icon name. I don't even have to think about how to include SVGs on buttons and things anymore. I just have to know how to spell icon name. So I'll just say, well, actually, I need to know how to spell utility, apparently, too. Utility, there we go. And then check. And then my size, anybody remember? Extra small, right. So extra small. And of course, for accessibility, because again, as we talked about, accessibility is baked right in, I'm going to provide some alternative text to say that this step has been completed. Now I can simply copy this. We'll go right down here and replace it again here, and we'll replace it one more time down here.
You know what? One other thing that's happening when you're doing this?
What's that?
You're replacing 3 lines with 1 line, and it's a lot more simpler line.
Right, because that's the beauty of the base Lightning components. Through a very simple markup, the base Lightning components are taking care of rendering the actual markup that you otherwise would have had to go to the Salesforce Lightning Design System to actually build. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to show these people what this actually looks like. So let's go ahead and put that on there. We'll go back over here to edit our page. Now, when I do this, I'm going to put this on here, and it's going to look beautiful, and the crowd is going to go really wild here, because literally with a couple of little clicks there, I was able to create a process bar, right? You didn't go wild. All right, wait. No, do not pity me, okay? There's actually a secret here. There's actually one bad thing. One of the points that may have gone by really quickly that I want to stress is something that Srini pointed out way early in the beginning, and that is what we're trying to do with these base components is let you, the Lightning developers, build faster by not having to worry about the markup. He said all you have to worry about is your business logic. So actually, this process bar, as beautiful as it looks, doesn't really work right now with this particular page because it's just the markup. I don't have the actual controller code that I need. So what I'm actually going to do, just to show you, is I'm going to go ahead and cancel or remove that one, and then I'm going to grab another one here that I've actually already built and completed, so we can just save that and see that as we go back over here to our page one more time, we're going to notice, woohoo, that says that that one is currently available. Sure enough, the status says it's available. Let's see if we click on under contact. There we go. We clicked on under contract. Sure enough, the status updated to be under contract. And you know the really, really, really cool thing about it? For that one, all I had to do was to write, if we consider the open and closed brackets as individual lines, 20 lines of code, and that was done. That was completely done for me. Is that cool? All right, last thing, just to really throw it over the top. Now, a lot of times when we're building, you know, as much as I like the look of some of these things that within the Salesforce platform, sometimes you want to build a special snowflake. You want to build a component that doesn't necessarily look like anything else. So I happen to have prepared one for you.
Go for it.
All right, so I'm going to go back over here into my page. We're going to edit our page one more time. That is, if my interwebs are slow. Come on. This is where you're supposed to sing and dance while I'm waiting.
I can do one. Why don't you sing?
No, don't. Please do not sing. All right, something is going on. It's like, oh, there we go. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just drag on. First of all, let's get rid of this. This was a silly one, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Goodbye. See you later. All right, and then I'm going to find another one. I built one here called the Neighborhood Explorer. You see, this is a house site working for a broker, so I'm just going to go ahead and save this and go back over and show you that this component, everything that you see here, well, 99% of what you see here is all built using the base Lightning components. So this is actually, when you're looking at properties, what do you want to know? You want to know what are the schools around, or what's the shopping around. Do you know what that's called? That's a tab set and tabs. Those are those Lightning tab set with Lightning tabs. Now, you notice I've got some bookstores here, but the sorting is in miles like this. Now, I actually know that the service I'm using to calculate those distances delivers this back in a really, 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 really long number. I don't like that. So I actually got to use the formatted number to convert those into just those short 2 decimal places right there. And then I used my button group here. There's my button group, so that I could then sort from near to far, from far to near, or even perhaps by star ratings as well. Now, of course, remember that input field? That input field? Yes, I'm going to. Okay. That input field, there's your input field. Hey, what's your favorite kind of food?
Sushi.
Sushi. All right. Well, let's do sushi, and let's go search. And there's a search button, and look at that. There's a button icon right in there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we'll go search for sushi, and sure enough, there is some sushi right around that house in Boston. Now, you want to see the code?
I used to live not far from there, by the way.
Oh really?
I probably know that place.
Okay. So we'll go back over to the developer console. And I'm going to open that one, that last one up there, and that is in here. It is called the Neighborhood Explorer. If I sort by name, we'll actually be able to find that right here. So here's that component.
I have a wish list here.
Do what?
I have a wish list, if you're going to show code.
You have a wish list?
Yes.
All right. Well, first, before you talk about your wish list, you'll notice here we have that. There's that Lightning tab set, Lightning tab, all right, Lightning layout items. This is really where it gets cool. The layout items are based on the Flexbox grid that comes out of the Salesforce Lightning design system. But you and I, we don't have to know anything about Flexbox grids and all that kind of stuff. We simply have to understand how to define a layout item. Okay? And with that, was that impressive? Come on, I worked really hard on that. Well, actually, I didn't, but I still appreciate the applause. Srini, do we have anything else?
Well, I wanted to see a card.
You want to see a card?
Yes.
No, we're out of time.
Next time.
Next time. Actually, we can show them cards over on our booth. So if you want to know more about the base Lightning components.
There's a booth right at the entrance. It's called Base Lightning Components in the Developer Force. Some of the people from the team are right here. So we'll be hanging out after this. So if you have questions, you can come and reach out to us. Or else we'll be in the booth later.
With that, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.